What's up, everyone? George Balekji here with Foxborough Rush. But hey, check out the latest episode of Boston has entered the chat. Michael Carter-Williams and Mandy Carter-Zegarowski stopped by from the Boston Women's Basketball Partners to talk the latest on WNBA, possibly expanding to Boston in the future. Also, Ethan and Jason, as always, stopped by to break down the latest in WWE Raw on Netflix. Now, let's get to Foxborough Rush. What's up? What's happening? George Balekji here with Travis Thomas on Foxborough Rush. And Trav, this is the nerd out day for me. You know why, my man? You know why.
I know why.
Mike Vrabel spoke at the podium.
I know.
At the Combine. He gave good answers. He gave actual answers, unlike the predecessor.
Yeah.
Actual football answers. We have ideas now. We talked about the guys the Patriots should target. Now we're going to do a lot of dissecting of reading between the lines, between the sentences, between the words.
That's right.
Other type of players the Patriots are going to be targeting at the Combine.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you and I have questions, several questions, surrounding this team, surrounding the game plan, the strategy of how we're going to build this thing up. And listen, Vrabel gave us a lot of answers, my man. He did.
Hey, on today's episode, Mike Vrabel knew who his top coordinators were well before the season ended, so Sean McGuire of NESN.com will stop by to give us a peek into how it was more than just a few months, since he was hired in January, but actually looked like a season-long partnership between Vrabel and one of his coordinators. Plus, what is Vrabel's plan for free agency? Notice, we're only saying Mike Vrabel because I noticed something about Elliott Wolf during his presser, and with the Pats picking fourth in the deep draft with D-line talent, and those guys, the defensive linemen, being the first to start workouts out in Indy, we go through some targets the Patriots should have for that. Let's bring them in. Sean McGuire of NESN.com. You guys know where to catch us full coverage, of course, on NESN.com. Sean, day one of Combine coverage, man. Felt good to finally arrive.
Yeah, we're here. It's good to be here.
And let's start with the big part of what comes before the Combine, what comes before the NFL draft. And all the talk, and Mike Vrabel said it too, in free agency, he wants to find guys that will make instant impacts, and you get NFL players now. You want the roster to be better from free agency. But the question is, with them having the most cap space in the NFL, what's going to happen? Here's what Mike Vrabel had to say when asked about having all those resources in the bank and as they get ready to spend.
Well, I mean, I'm sure, I like to shop like everybody else. And so when you go and there's only one of, a certain car, maybe you have to pay a little bit more for that one car because there's only one of them. When you start to get into a range where you feel like there's an area where players are comparable and you like 3 or 4 players at a certain area for a certain role, you may not have to overspend. But it's free agency. I think that everybody overspends sometimes in free agency.
Overspend.
He's right.
Realistic. Yeah, Trav, so you said he's right. Sean, what do you make of him going right over the end of, hey, you want something, there's going to be a demand, you have to be ready to pony up for it?
Yeah, no, I think it says a lot. I mean, to me, I take that as he is open to overspending. If the player is right, if the fit is right, all that sort of thing. I mean, when he links it to the car example, right? I mean, that's a good one. And he flat out says you might have to pay a little bit more for that one car.
That's right.
And, so if you want to take it a step further, and it's just kind of the stuff that was going through my head while I'm hearing it. I mean, to me, that sounds like a T. Higgins. If T. Higgins hits the open market, obviously there's a lot at play right now. But if he gets there, which there's been a few reports since last week that is hinting he might. And if he does, I think this overspending and throwing a lot of money at that car, T. Higgins could be that car. Ronnie Stanley. And there was a comment from the Ravens GM today that, they're optimistic they're going to get a deal done with Ronnie Stanley. But if they don't, Ronnie Stanley could be that car. They could throw 2 years, $45 million at him or something like that. And it's not just those two guys. I mean, Milton Williams too, and
Josh Sweat,
DJ Reed, all those sorts of guys that they're going to be big money guys. And it just, I think it's really good to hear Vrabel and company, Vrabel and Elliott Wolf and those guys, they're not going to just kind of quiver and back into a corner if the prices get high, because the Patriots know they need talent. They need good players. They need, talent, and that talent comes with big contracts.
You have to pay for it.
Exactly. You have to pay for it. So I just think, Vrabel saying that stuff and, not only talk about being aggressive, but really going a step further when it comes to that overspending. I think that says a lot about where the team is entering the offseason.
Yeah. Esmeezy's preaching, George. I mean, The car analogy spoke to me too, because he's right. I mean, you're going to pay a premium, I don't know, for a Porsche or a Benzo or a Bentley or something. You're not going to for a Toyota, or like me, I'm Team Nissan, okay? I'm balling on a budget. It's a solid car. It gets me to A and B, but it ain't a Phantom. So he's right. I mean, and he also used that car analogy, Esmeezy. He used it at premium positions in this league. So to your example, T. Higgins, a true wide receiver one, or at least we think, is going to cost more than if you're just adding depth and a tight end, right? So yeah, I mean, this is a lot of his quotes, and I know we're getting to more here, George. A lot of his quotes were Captain Obvious to me, and it's refreshing because we didn't have that with Gerard Mayo. And towards the end of Belichick, you didn't have that either because he's smarter than you and he's condescending, right? So I like that this guy's in here saying Captain Obvious things that are commonsensical. That's what the Patriots have been missing for a while.
Yeah, it might be like we talk, it's all the sports car analogies with T. Higgins. Man, if he just wants to get a souped up Escalade, which you got to play a top dollar for, and because if that Escalade's Alaric Jackson or Ronnie Stanley or Trey Smith, like let's be real, they need to get better all over the offensive line. Yeah. And that's going to see a big number. Like we are going to see Trey Smith reset the guard market because the Chiefs cap space aren't in a place to franchise tag a Trey Smith.
Right.
He hits the open market. That's where you get overspending.
Yep.
The money, Sean, you mentioned 2 years, $45 million. We are going to see a Trey Smith deal in the area of $104 million, $105 million total value, and in the area of $50 to $55 million total guaranteed or more guaranteed at signing. He's going to reset that market. That's the overspending. But that's the overspending that you need. And let's even think about it where he also said on SiriusXM, quote, we want to add enough players in free agency to get to the point where it's, here's a roster, we can line up and play tomorrow, then let the draft come to us.
Yeah. Yep.
That's more overspending too. Because if you want to have that type of roster coming out of free agency with how bad this roster is, that's Trey Smith, that's Ronnie Stanley. That's two. Maybe a Patrick McCarry instead of a Ronnie Stanley. But McCarry figures out your tackle spots.
Yep.
That's a Darius Slayton, which people aren't going to like. But just think of Khalil Shakur just now with the Bills signing that extension. $60.2 million over 4 years and just over $30 million guaranteed. That puts him top 25 in AAV. That puts him 21st in guaranteed money, especially total guaranteed. That's overspending. And you're going to do that for a Darius Slayton because your receiving room is so bad. So I love that. One more bite we want to get to him. Here's his timeline he shares with Josh McDaniels. Check it out right here.
Just looking at the staff, extremely proud of the staff that we were able to put together. It's difficult in the National Football League to be able to get every coach that you may covet or may want to get outside the coordinators that aren't a coordinator at somewhere else just because of the rules. Like teams are under contract. Some teams want to keep the coaches that they have. They feel like they're good coaches. But we were able to put together a great staff, one that we're really proud of. And you asked about Josh, and I would say that, having had communications with Josh in my role in Cleveland, he wasn't under contract with the team, so we had numerous conversations, interviewed a handful of great candidates, and in the end felt like Josh was the best fit to lead our offense, just like Terrell was the best fit to lead our defense, and Jeremy and Tom returning to lead the special teams unit.
Him and Josh McDaniels have been in talk, and that's where the second Mike Vrabel is let go by the Titans.
Yep.
He's talking to Terrell Williams. Hey, wherever I get my second chance, you're my guy. You're going to be my DC or D lineman. But the fact he's saying, well, Josh wasn't under contract with the team. I was just a consultant. Yeah, I've been talking with him all year. That sheds more light on this process where everyone's thinking the Crafts forced Josh McDaniels on Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel doesn't take this job if Josh McDaniels is forced on him.
That's right.
And again, as we've said it since day one, Josh McDaniels was the best offensive play caller out there on the market.
That's right.
But that's big. He's basically saying, hey, go far back as you want. Let's go back to last August. He's like, yeah, I'm talking with Josh McDaniels. And I was picking his brain of how he has that outlook as an offensive coordinator. What did you make of that, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of, he was confirmed, it was previously speculated that was the case, right? But the fact that he did kind of come out and confirm it. I thought, there is something to that. And I do think, to your point about the Crafts aspect of things, I think it makes them look a lot better. I mean, there was a lot of, talk radio hosts and everything like that after Josh McDaniel was hired saying that hire was pushed on Vrabel. And just, for Vrabel to kind of confirm, no, I was having these conversations, before I was hired by the Patriots, because that was another thing at the time where it's like, okay, if Vrabel was to get hired by the Jets, is he going to bring Josh McDaniels with him? That was kind of a question, I think, at the time. And based on the fact that they were having conversations and all those sorts of things, I think that goes to show that, Vrabel was pretty locked in on Josh McDaniels before he ended up in New England. It's not just the New England ties in that aspect. He felt he was the best coordinator for the job, the most experienced for the job, and that's why he ended up hiring him. The fact that they're all in New England and, McDaniels had such a connection to New England prior, I think that's just kind of icing on the cake at this point, and I think Vrabel's comments today pretty much confirm that.
Jeez, man, S. Mizzle's on fire, because I want to take it a step further. I mean, you mentioned some radio host in the market suggesting that this was a move that the Crafts pushed on Vrabel. We call BS to that. The other thing we call BS to is some radio hosts suggested that this is alpha versus alpha.
Yep.
And whose team is it really? Is it Josh McDaniels or Vrabel? And it's like, come on, bro. Clearly there is none of that between these two. Both of them have separately said that doesn't exist between the two of them, and they go way back and they're chummy. But also, this just further illustrates Vrabel respects this guy. There is no alpha versus alpha here. Vrabel's already, as a consultant, been consulting Josh McDaniels. So what the hell are we talking about? That is equal, respect for one another and love for one another. This is going to work just fine. And George and I called that too.
It's also when you look at the whole offensive staff. Josh McDaniels is your offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Thomas Brown is your passing game coordinator and tight ends coach. Doug Marrone is head of your O-line. Todd Downing's head of your wide receiving room. McDaniels, Brown, and Marrone, all interim or actual, have head coaching experience.
Right.
And then McDaniels, Thomas Brown, and Todd Downing, all for better or worse, have offensive play calling experience. The top four guys on your offensive staff, including the head honcho, who's basically going to be the head coach of the offense, has been a head coach and has been a play caller, and again had the longest resume in that. That comes as no surprise. Mike Vrabel, he even was asked it too, and he was like, as a consultant, someone was asking about that time. He's like, nope, wouldn't have done that. He goes, he wants to be a head coach. The second he is fired from Tennessee, and we're going to talk about Terrell Williams, Travis and I, later on in the show, about 5 minutes. You guys will hear from his comments about Terrell Williams. The second he gets let go by the Titans and has that one-on-one with Terrell, you know what he's saying to him? He's like, man, this sucks. I'm hurt because I'm doing this to your family. I'm assuming this is what Vrabel is saying to him. And he goes, when I get my next go-ahead coach, I got you. That's what these guys do.
That's right.
Josh McDaniels, what's the famous joke that went around? He was the one that picked up Mike Vrabel from the airport when the Patriots signed him from the Steelers. Okay, yeah, that's not a relationship that goes away. It was intriguing for him to open up and admit it. I like that. I love this honesty from him. That's how it works, man. That's how this is. It's the same thing. You can't track those phone calls. Say if it was even like tampering, like Vrabel would be like, well, I was consulting with the Browns. I just want to check in on Josh and how his dogs are doing.
That's right.
We were planning on going out to Nantucket together, and then, that's it. That's all we spoke about. What ice cream spot to go to.
George, you know what will help them get along even better? Drake Maye.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And that's it, too. And that's where he's talking, where Vrabel's going, hey, here are the openings.
Yeah.
If you're my OC, what do you see in Drake Maye? You like him? If Josh is like, I hate the kid, then you'll be like, all right, man, I like him, and obviously he's going to be there.
That's right.
That's what it all is. Sean, always appreciate you hopping on the show, giving the insight, my man. Catch all of Sean's coverage on NESN.com. Full coverage of the Patriots. If you're enjoying this conversation about the Patriots and you want to talk more sports, check out Boston Has Entered the Chat. New episodes dropping every Monday through Friday. Wherever you guys get your podcasts, make sure to email us, thechat@NESN.com. You can also tweet at us using the hashtag NESNChat as well. That is Boston Has Entered the Chat. New episodes dropping every Monday through Friday. All right, T, so let's get into it. There's some more comments coming from Vrabel's way. Ones that I liked. More on free agency for him. Asked about the aggression we'll see from the Patriots in free agency. Here's what Mike Vrabel had to say.
Hopefully aggressive. I mean, we want to be aggressive. We want to target players that we feel like are going to help us. They're going to be outstanding players. They're going to be outstanding additions to the locker room and the community. And if that all fits and the compensation fits, but I'm confident that we'll be aggressive. We've started some of those discussions internally, and I think having different plans and having an option A and option B, I mean, things are going to change. Everybody's looking at the same players, so we have to be ready to pivot and adjust and have a vision for each player, I would say, at each level. I mean, there's going to be this high level that things are going to get done very quickly. That'll transition then to, maybe just some mid-range dollars, and then obviously you look at opportunity. So free agency gets broken down into, compensation, and then it gets broken down into opportunity. And I feel like we're in a position to offer both as far as compensation and opportunity for some of these players.
They got the long bankroll.
Love that.
You know what I like, though? He talked about the pivot. Because right now the big fish out there is Ronnie Stanley for anyone needing a left tackle.
Yes.
Here's what Eric DaCosta, longtime general manager of the Ravens, had to say. Never want to say I'm 100%, but I feel good about coming to an extension agreement with Ronnie Stanley. Met with his agent, and I will meet with his agent in Indy this week, and I'm optimistic we'll have a deal done. John Harbaugh, head coach of the Ravens.
Yeah.
I think we'll probably keep Ronnie. I'm hopeful that we will. End quote. He said some more if we don't have an option.
Yeah.
But that's what these guys are.
Yep.
And so there's a part of hopefully aggressive so we get the big fish. And if we whiff and the line snaps and we can't get him, if we can't get a Ronnie Stanley, 6'6", 315, will be 32 years old at the new league year.
Yep.
What do we go with the guy what's the backup if we don't land the guy that's had almost 7,000 career snaps at left tackle? That's Patrick McCarry, who in the last season alone played left tackle, right tackle, and left guard for the Ravens. All right, if it's not them two, is it possible that an Alaric Jackson's out there? Is it Cam Robinson, the forgotten guy in all of this?
That's
Again,
right,
get the best 5 up there.
Yep.
And also to be aggressive, where Mike Vrabel wants to go into the draft with a set line above, okay, we can play with these guys. Now let's fill out the rest with the draft, which is what the Commanders did. Is there a Jedrick Wills, who would be a backup left tackle? Look at the guard spots, Trav. Trey Smith, Will Freeze coming off a broken tibia. I don't know how much. I'm sorry. Yeah, he had the broken tibia. There's James Daniels who tore his Achilles. That's a thing of you got to be aggressive to get Trey Smith, because let's look at Ronnie Stanley. You miss on him, you get Patrick McCarry, and then there's a draft. You miss on Trey Smith, you have a right guard coming off a broken leg, or you have a right guard and James Daniel coming off a torn Achilles.
Yep.
Your priority has to be Trey Smith. You can't miss on him. And keep in mind, you have Mike Onwenu, but he can play left, he can play right tackle. And then even think of the wide receivers. Is that being overly aggressive, going and trading for a DK Metcalf or a T. Higgins? And if that trade doesn't work, Nick Westbrook-Akine and Darius Slayton. Being aggressive, because that's 1 and 2 on your priority list.
Yeah.
And your wide receiver 1 this year doesn't have to be your wide receiver 1 the next year. Because keep in mind, all the talk about T. Higgins, he was in that 2020 draft class with Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
The next year they got Jamar Chase.
Right.
It's a long rebuild. He spoke about that. Hopefully aggressive. That's him coming out. Hopefully we're aggressive.
Yeah.
Now that's where Merck's it a little bit of. Hopefully. Mike Vrabel, you're running the show. You got your boy Ryan Cowden in the room too.
Well, I think it just means he doesn't want to do anything stupid. Like, I mean, if the Bengals franchise tag T. Higgins and you trade for T. Higgins, that's stupid. Okay, I'm sorry. I said that from the beginning, George. They franchise tag him, I'm out on T. Higgins for another year. I mean, maybe next offseason we can have these same discussions. But if you go trade for him, that's stupid. I'm not going to call it stupid to trade for a DK Metcalf. I'll knock it down a notch and call it dumb, because I do think, you don't have to force a wide receiver 1 in an offseason where there's not a ton of them. Like, there's no market. Teams are not letting these guys go. Now, when you start talking left tackle, that's a different situation. You are so desperate right now, today, that you will have to overpay. So I think hopefully aggressive means just that, George.
Yeah.
I think the hopeful in front of aggression is we're not going to do anything stupid, but hopefully we can be aggressive in a smart way. And I do. So that's how I took it. And I agree with him wholeheartedly. And we're going to get into all these sound bites. And I know you nerd out over this stuff, but so do I. Because I just think we're getting more clarity to all the topics you and I talk about every day. He is painting a picture for us. And he's smart. Let's just turn back the clock one offseason, shall we? Remember when you and I talked about and dissected and broke down the quote that said, yeah, I mean, we're going to burn some cash, baby. Woo! What?
Yep.
So now we're getting a measured
Burn some cash.
approach.
Professional.
Hopefully aggressive.
Yep.
Yeah. It's like saying cautiously optimistic. I still hear optimistic. I hear optimism in there,
Yeah.
but I hear cautiously. So I get it. That's what I think he's doing here, George. I really do. By the way, I'm just reading an article. I want to take you into this because you and I are always open and honest and transparent with each other. I'm reading a story right now that I just don't like, that Trey Smith is the betting favorite to go to the Chicago Bears, and the Bears are dropping, hopefully, and just being aggressive in trying to get him. So, again, I bring that up because that's what Vrabel's saying. Like, a lot of these guys, we're going to lose to other highest bidders, other teams. We got to make decisions that are smart for the Patriots long-term, too. So I kind of get it. Hopefully aggressive does not really sound off any red flags or anything to me. I agree with him.
Stream the entire Red Sox season with the NESN 360 annual plan, available at an all-new, reduced price of just $20 a month, paid annually. And for a limited time, get free 4 tickets to Fenway with your purchase. Visit NESN360.com to sign up today. But if you have the most cap space in the NFL,
I know.
how can there be a highest bidder?
I know.
And I did say this last show that we could see a Trey Smith go to the Bears because they need a guard.
Well, right.
And the Bears could be a trade back spot if they want to get aggressive and go up
There's
to
going to be
4.
other teams involved in all these guys,
But
right?
that goes to what we opened up with the overspending.
Yeah.
Because, look, with Trey Smith, you're getting 6'6", 320, 26 years old at the start of the league year. 4-year starter for the Chief, good on the interior. Their interior pocket was fine.
Yes.
The tackles stunk.
Yeah.
In 3,500 career pass blocking snaps with the Chiefs, he only allowed a pressure on 5% of those pass blocking snaps. A pressure, not a sack.
Right.
Pressures do a lot to a quarterback. This is what the reality is, and this is what the overspending is. You can look at the market, say whatever you want. This contract for Trey Smith. And also, who put out that report?
Right.
Trey Smith's agent.
Yeah.
Bears are willing to be the highest bidder. Well,
Facts.
the Patriots are going, no, we will. Because they know that he can drive up the guard market from the highest it is right now. I believe it's $102 million total value to 105, 107, perhaps maybe even 110.
Goodness.
What is the fully guaranteed? Because same thing, he's going to become the highest paid guard in the history of the NFL. And the Patriots need it. Now, do they meet with him and go, you've only played right guard. Can you play left?
Right.
Do they go to Mike Onwenu? Who, by the way, Elliot Wolf did say last offseason, well, we got the best tackle out there on the market, which Mike Onwenu was in free agency. And again, that speaks to that these great tackles just don't hit the open market. But do you go to Mike Onwenu, who is making a good chunk of change? Hey, we're going to move you to the left side because the guy we just paid more money than you is going to be playing on the right side. And is Mike Onwenu up for that? But that's where the dominoes fall. I don't want to hear if they lose someone to the highest bidder. You are the highest bidder. You walk into that room with $50 million more dollars than anybody else in the league to spend. And
Gosh.
guess what? If it's not the best at the receiving room, but you still have to block up front, you have to make that happen.
Yes.
Because that's what it comes into. And let's get into it. Another one he talked about. Great question here. How does he plan to support Drake Maye?
Well, there's a lot. I mean, again, I think you always talk about being able to protect them. You have to be able to have some guys that can help them on the edges and be able to make contested catches. And you don't have to be perfect, right? You don't have to have, perfect ball placement, right? And those are all things that we talk about, trying to support Drake, believing that he is the future of our franchise at quarterback, and been able to meet with him and talk with him and just get to know him as a person. But you have to look at the lines of scrimmage, and you look no further than the Super Bowl game where, that game was clearly won at the line of scrimmage.
Hear that?
Yep.
Talking Super Bowl, talking, ball placement doesn't have to be perfect. And he said this from the get-go. He's like, I want a guy that gets separation, but I want a guy that's good with contested catches. Hello, Ted McMillan.
That's right.
Bell going
guy.
off for a lot of people.
Yep.
Yeah. He'd be my guy if he was second rounder. Jaden Higgins, though, that's a guy that does that. Go watch his tape on playing Iowa State. Let's start with helping him on the edge. I mean, he's talking wide receiver. Who can help him on the edge? DK Metcalf, 6'4", 230. Will be 27 years old at the start of this upcoming season.
What do you have to give up? That's my only thing.
Yeah,
with
I
him.
get you. Okay. But then here's the realistic part of it too then. Weak free agency wide receiver in class. You're going to have to overspend again.
Right.
If you walk away with, I'll keep mapping this out, with your wide receiving room looking like Darius Slayton, Nick Westbrook-Akine, Pop Douglas, rookie wide receiver, Jalen Polk.
Yeah.
And one of those rooks could be a Jaden Higgins, Xavier Restrepo, Jack Besh, Jalen Noel. Guys that can line up in the slot and be effective there in a Jacoby Myers role, right? If one of those rookies is that and then the other one's a project, then that's fine. You live with that. Because like that's where it has to begin, where there's going to be overspending. It's going to be a multi-year rebuild, and he doesn't want it to take long. But there's being realistic with the talent you're going to get. And let's face it, this roster is bad. Like the coaching was terrible, Trev. They would go out there on Sundays and I would go, what is being taught? Everyone would. What's being taught to these guys from Wednesday to Saturday leading up to the game Sunday?
Right.
What is being coached to them that they look lost? And in game management, they weren't given a chance. But the roster also wasn't the best. And he said, we're going to have a vastly different looking roster. That's a reality.
Yeah.
That's a support on the edges. Because also when you look at a Slayton and Westbrook-Akine, they're two of the better receivers in the NFL in tight window throws. They're not the best at separation, but they're good at contested catches. And they're good after the catch. And that matters too.
Well, look, some of this too is why I said nothing against the DK Metcalf thing. I need to know the price to this. I don't want to I don't want to give up too much draft capital for DK Metcalf. And look, I think, and I'm going to say this term again, I think you could kick the can down the road as it pertains to a true knockdown, drag-out wide receiver one. Some of those names you mentioned, whether it's a couple rookie guys you take late, whether it's Jalen Polk, young receiver who still needs to develop, even Pop Douglas, who's still developing. And you brought up the coaching. I think that's a good aspect of this, of Vrabel, McDaniels, and crew. What can you get out of these guys that Gerard Mayo and his staff failed to do? Someone is going to emerge here.
Yeah.
If it's more than one guy, even better. But from your current wide receiver room, someone's going to emerge. Maybe there's another gear to Pop Douglas, who we all like. Maybe you're right. I know you're high on Jalen Polk. You keep telling me this guy's going to work out eventually. Yeah. Maybe he will. But at some point, or maybe you're drafting late, you're getting a receiver in here who can play, and we're like, oh, this guy can play. But that receiver wouldn't have worked in the Mayo world, right? But it could work in the Vrabel McDaniels world. So that's why I think you can kick the can for another offseason down the road and figure out a wide receiver one. Yeah. You cannot do that when it comes to the offensive line. And we all know it, and Vrabel just said it. That's where you can be aggressive. Yeah. That's where I do agree with you. I don't want to hear highest bidder stuff on that offensive line, okay? Yeah. Receivers, if Slayton gets into a bidding war, I'm out on that. I'm sorry. But at the same time, if I can get my offensive line fortified this offseason, overpaying or not, cool. We can figure out wide receiver one down the road. And by the way, the wide receivers you do have on the roster could be enhanced just by the player development and the coaching that they're getting.
It's a simple fact of they're going to go into this. Yeah, I'm not going to give up on Jalen Polk. I think he just lost his confidence. Yeah. Right? And I'm not, if he's a good wide receiver 3 eventually, then cool.
Great.
Don't love it. You burned that second round pick.
Yeah. But it's something. You're getting nothing now.
Yeah. It could have been a McConkey. It could have even been a Xavier Legette. But whatever. Think about it like this too, Trav. With at 4, and we had our friend of the show, Matt Miller, on. Check out the older episodes of Foxborough Rush, by the way, too. Once you're done with this one, Matt Miller hopped on the show last week to talk about what the Patriots should do at 4. Yep. And what he pointed out, he goes, before I get to draft day, I'm out in Indy, and I am blowing smoke up everyone's. Hey, a lot of teams are calling. Yeah. I heard someone's going to move up. Yep. I heard someone's going to take Shador Sanders at 3. Mm-hmm. And that causes that rush of teams wanting to trade up and get a Shador, or causing teams want to see what it takes to move up to 4. And if you get a team, Trav, let's look at it like this. A team that moves up enough to get up to 4 to get the player they want. Let's say it's a quarterback.
Yeah.
What was the A.J. Brown trade? It was the 18th overall pick because
That's
the
right.
Eagles had 2 first-round picks in that draft.
Yeah.
And that's where it comes and I mapped it out. Again, older episode of Foxborough Rush. Check it out. When T. Higgins was tagged, we all had our moment, right? I spoke from the heart for 7 minutes. This is how it goes down. You're not going to get those guys that hit the open market. If you want to trade for a T. Higgins who's franchise tagged, that's going to take 2 firsts.
Yeah,
Good
don't
luck.
do that.
I don't want that.
No.
But if you have 2 first-round picks in next year's draft with the Pats, Trav, that's your plan. And I see it.
Yeah.
Offensive line this draft,
Yes.
you're going to pay for someone. You need to sign a veteran receiver and draft.
Yeah.
And then next draft, when you have 2 first-round picks, let's say.
There you go.
Or a bevy of picks.
There you go.
Depending where you're picking. Because let's also face it. Let's say
It
let's
could be
just
a better
say,
receiver draft.
Let's say
too.
the Patriots
We don't know.
fall to like 18, right?
Right.
Next year's draft. Let's say they're picking around 18, 20.
Sure.
And there is a receiver on the market. And now you have me thinking for a later episode.
Yeah.
Right? Who are the targets next offseason? We'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
And it's the DK Metcalf argument for a second-round pick. Who is better that you're going to get in the second round than DK Metcalf? No one.
No one.
And
I'm
that's
fine
what it
with
would
that
be.
price.
Right, but that's what it would be next year in the first to get an elite one.
Sure.
And all
Yeah.
this argument could go away if they trade a second and a fourth for DK Metcalf, extend him, overpay him to a bit, and then trade back from 4 to 7, reaccrue a second-round pick, and then boom, they still have a top 10 pick. They got a second. They have their elite receiver 1. We could see what they happen at top 10. There's just multiple options at that.
It is.
For him to just straight up say, I got to help him on the outside and I got to block for him up front, that's what you want, man. You know what I loved about this T, all in all?
Yeah.
He had an actual plan.
Yes.
He had actual
A
ideas.
common sense plan, too.
That's a guy that spoke for 15 minutes, went up, said, I don't got an opening statement. Karen Garigian, what do you got? Let me pick you out right now. Let's go.
That's right.
Boom.
Yeah.
Let's get going.
Yep. Yeah.
And he had answers for everything. Even the, hey, why do you have this title on your staff? And why do you have such a big staff? And we'll get into all that. But he had an answer for everything. That's what I loved.
I know we're going to talk defense here with Terrell Williams, but, just to kind of piggyback off what you're saying here, I bring Terrell Williams up because sometimes defense is your best offense.
Yeah.
And so this could be, going back to the big picture off season, George.
Yeah.
Instead of overpaying or overreaching for a wide receiver 1, I'm using air quotes because outside of T. Higgins, who the hell is it? And you are overpaying and overreaching for anyone else, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you punt on that, pun intended, and you focus on offensive line, which he's telling you, and we all know you got to do, and defense, George, let's say defensive side of the ball. Well, all of a sudden, you are much better in the trenches on both sides, offensive and defensive line.
Yeah.
You got a shutdown corner back there in Christian Gonzalez, who just showed you, oh, yeah, baby, I can stay healthy. Okay? So now all of a sudden, if you can improve that offensive line via free agency, via draft, and defense via free agency and draft, I mean, life's a lot easier for everyone. Drake Maye, you're taking more pressure off of these young receivers to continue to develop.
Yeah.
I get there's no stud, but still, your defense is keeping you in games. Your offensive line's protecting your young stud quarterback. You're going to win games. And then you go in the next offseason with a much clearer vision. Okay, we solidified offensive line. We solidified our defense. Drake Maye had another year of development. Working in now we have year 2 of Drake Maye and McDaniel's system, but he's year 3 in the league. Let's go get him. Insert name here. Whether it's draft, we don't know. Next season's draft class at wide receiver may be better, George. Free agent class maybe. Let's go get him a true number 1 receiver, or let's go get him 2 wide receivers. Whatever it takes. You see, so this offseason could just be focusing on offensive line and defense, and then next offseason you can recalibrate and worry about the wide receiver. And I'm fine with that plan.
The first offseason under a new head coach and a new front office, which this is, even though it's the same names, you have to reset it because you have to undo. And keep in mind, too, man.
That's true.
All right, so this year it'll be Josh McDaniels as offensive coordinator.
Right.
The year before him was Alex Van Pelt. Wow,
That's
almost
right.
blanked out on his
Well,
name.
that's okay.
Yeah, we all want to forget about
That's
it.
an okay blank out.
The year before that was Bill O'Brien with one hand tied behind his back
That's
because Bill Belichick reportedly didn't trust him. That's coming from me, not from B.O.B. The only assistant he was given was an assistant tight ends coach. Says a lot.
Yeah, it
Before
does.
Bill O'Brien was Matt Patricia.
Oh, God.
Before Matt Patricia was Josh McDaniels. So
That's right.
you're bringing back that OC, but this is about to be a 5th different offensive coordinator in 5 seasons.
Goodness.
And every year you take one away, you have to reset that roster the following year because a new guy comes in. Once McDaniels left and a Matt Patricia comes in, Matt's going, I want this type of receiver here. I like this guy. I like that.
Right.
Then Bill O'Brien comes in and goes, I hate that receiver. I need this receiver here.
Absolutely.
Then Alex Van Pelt comes in. Well, I don't like this offensive lineman. I'm switching up from power run to a more of a zone gap scheme. Okay. And that's what goes down. So, yes, it's going to take a year. And Trav, too, because I said it, and you know what? I can't hold off on it. But here are the guys that will be pending free agents next offseason.
Okay.
And this is what makes sense because teams will either make the choice. Do we want to extend them or do we trade them
Right.
and then reset the cost control window that we have? Drake London, Rashid Shaheed, Garrett Wilson, which you'd have to really trade a lot because it's in the division.
Yeah.
Chris Olave. Like, those are just the top names that jump off the page.
Better
to
than
me.
this class.
Exactly. And even think about, though, you have the pending of like a Jawan Jennings, who'd be a vet, always productive with the Niners.
Yeah.
And that's a guy you could trade for a lot cheaper. But like that's the different ways to improve the roster where they can go right now. Hey, let's take it easy. We're going to get DK. Let's sign this guy.
Yep.
Next year, let's get some first. Let's figure out the draft assets. Let's see where we are. Let's trade for a Drake London, which I don't think would happen if the Falcons figure it out with Michael Penix. But you get what I'm saying.
All right, I want to play your game. Here's the wide receivers in next year's draft. As of now, Denzel Boston, wide receiver, Washington,
Yep.
6'4", 210, just how you like him, 4'4", 40.
Yep.
Could we use that around here? Not yes, but hell yeah. Clemson, Antonio Williams, shorter guy, George, 5'11", 190, 4'4". Nick Anderson, LSU, 6'4", 210, another clone, 4'5", so a little slower, but a big guy, LSU wide receiver, need I say more. There's an Alabama guy here. I mean, the wide receiver class, now we'll see. We got to let college football play out, right? But just in a quick glance, George, before we take deep dives and start breaking these guys down next offseason, right? I mean, the top guys I just gave you were 6'4", 210 and could run like the wind. So I'm just saying, between free agency and draft next year, it's not loser mentality to think, well, we can't get a guy this season. So, no, I'd rather you not force it. Just improve. There's enough holes on the damn roster anyway. Offensive line being the main one. Improve there. Improve defensively. Just improve the roster. Improve, period. And then you can figure out wide receiver next year. I don't think that's some hot take from you and I. I think that's smart, and it sounds like that's where Vrabel is.
Carnell Tate, 6'3", chain mover out of Ohio State. You know
There
we
you
like
go.
those Ohio State receivers.
Right.
Put on some pounds on them, get them to bulk up, and that's what
Yeah.
happens. Hey, we were talking about Terrell Williams. Here it is right here. Here was Mike Vrabel asked about his DC, his guy from his Tennessee days, Terrell Williams.
Yeah, that's the plan. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to be the defensive coordinator. He's going to call defenses, and, you know, he's an aggressive-minded coach that's coached really aggressive defensive linemen. That's what that's his background. And so I've enjoyed the process of what he's learned when he's gone to Detroit, what he learned with us in Tennessee, to be able to tie the back end together with the stuff that we want to do with the front, and those conversations that have been going on in the last couple weeks since everybody's been together.
Super aggressive defensive lineman with combine workouts kicking off at D linemen and linebackers. We'll be talking about the D-line prospects in just a few minutes, but I love that he lays that out. That's my guy. He coaches super aggressive defensive linemen. That, like, he just basically maps it out to be just straight up about it as much as possible of, that's my dude. He's aggressive-minded. He coaches aggressive defensive linemen. And that's what it gets into, too, of like, he gives us a peek behind the curtain, which you watch the tape on Terrell Williams, you know what he wants. But aggressive defensive lineman is, again, going away from what it's looked like for D linemen for the Patriots the last 23, 24 years. Because Gerard Mayo kept that same type of defense, even though he wanted to be more aggressive with blitzes.
Well, he's a Belichick disciple,
no more
right?
3-4, man. It's 4-down linemen. Those are your disruptors. Those are wide 9 alignments. And that's what's encouraging to hear, though, of just how much he backs it up. And it's beyond that, Trav. He was also asked about, like, the simple thing of you're giving someone the title of passing game coordinator. Mm-hmm. And he said, I think a lot of times we want people to have a clearly defined role. If they excel in that role, we give them more things to do. You have loyalty and a trust to it. Those are ways to reward individuals. You have your role. This is your position group you're coaching. You go do that. If you do great, I'm going to give you more. And guess what? You either grow here or you go somewhere else and you get paid.
Sure.
But that's how he builds out, having assistant coaches that want to coach for him. And even asked about how big his staff is, he basically said, yeah, well, we want to make sure we're efficient. We want to identify quality control coaches because we have bigger practice squads. And he said the simple thing, T, which goes back to day one of him being introduced. He goes, I don't want guys coaching here till midnight and being back at 4 a.m. It's not healthy for the individual. It's not healthy for their families. And it's not healthy for our players because they don't get us operating at the highest possible level. Yeah. This is a guy that gets it, man. Yeah. That's what's so encouraging. He gets it. We all knew it. And you hear it. Let's see the actions. But the actions also were with filling out the defense, T.
Yeah, no doubt. And listen, I remember you and I going live here on NESN for Mike Vrabel's introductory press conference. And one of the things we both keyed in on, George, was I think the question was, like, what did you learn? What was the biggest lesson you learned from Tennessee that you're bringing here now as a head coach? And he talked about the relationships. And so just hearing you kind of go into some of these things that you like about Vrabel's culture is really what you're talking about as it pertains to Terrell Williams and the coaching staff. Listen, I think when Vrabel talks about my relationships with players, coaches, media needs to be better this time around than it was in Tennessee, I don't think it's coinky-dink that Terrell Williams, who's his guy, comes in here and gets this position. That is, George, literally the definition of a relationship. That's one of his guys.
Yep.
So I think it's going to work out. I can't wait to see it, and that's why I'm going back to this. I'm just repeating myself in this episode, but I truly believe they are going to focus on the trenches here, offensive line and defensive line, and that's smart. And I don't think it always has to necessarily be the shiny object on the outside. You don't, to use a car analogy that we used at the top of the show, George, when Vrabel was talking earlier, you don't necessarily need a convertible in a sports car right now. You need a bunch of, I think, would you say an Escalade? Like you need a bunch of SUVs. You may just need that durability this offseason.
Yeah.
And then next offseason, we get the Lambo, right? But for now, like I just like this. And the relationship with Terrell Williams that's already built.
Yeah.
He comes to New England trying to improve on relationships across the board. Genius. I mean, this whole thing, from Vrabel, from introductory press conference that I brought up to this, what we got today. This guy, I mean, he hasn't struck out yet.
It's consistent.
He is knocking him out of Fenway, brother.
Yep.
Every time he talks.
It's consistent.
It is.
The prior guy would say something on Sunday at 4 p.m. and walk it back Monday at 8 a.m.
Man, amen. Preach.
This guy's consistent. You know what's big, Trav? Before we get to the talking about the D-line prospects, didn't mention Elliott Wolf a single time.
Sure did.
Which is interesting because during his first go-arounds, introductory presser.
Sure did.
Introductory interview on the radio.
Yeah.
Elliott Wolf.
Yeah.
Elliott Wolf. Didn't mention him once.
No, he didn't.
And again, that says to me, this is me. I'm giving you guys the answers.
Yes.
If it was Gerard, when I get with Elliott Wolf, this is what we'll do.
Yeah.
No. It's all him.
Wolf would have talked. Kraft would have talked. You would have talked. I would have talked.
It's all him.
With Vrabel, it's all Vrabes.
Last one that he mentioned that point that I like too.
Yep.
And we'll do this right before we get to D-line prospects in just a minute, which I do like. He was asked about the input, the collaboration from position coaches and scouts.
Sure.
And he goes, with me being a former position coach, I think this guy will love this guy, scouts will love this guy, and they'll sit there and they'll argue. And he said he loves that. Coaches will have input. They'll evaluate free agents and prospects, put their list together, put it in, and then go from there. So he wants that room where you have a scout and a coach sitting at the table and pointing out why they have guys, what guys they love, why.
Yep.
And then they come together and go, okay, this is the one then.
Yep.
I'm the one that coaches it. You're the one that's scouting him. What info do you have? Here's what I like in a guy, and this is why I love him. And we're going to disagree, but we're going to come to amends, and we're going to move forward through with it.
That's right.
And talking position coach, talking scouts, we'll talk defensive linemen, but also make sure if you're enjoying the show, check out Foxborough Rush every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Prime. Please download. It would mean a lot to us. Our producers ask about the downloads. Everyone asks about the downloads.
We need them.
Not just the views, not just the listens, not just the comments, which we love. download. So if you're on Spotify, hit the settings gear icon on your phone and make sure to turn on downloads. If you're on Apple, just subscribe and it'll download for you automatically. That's Foxborough Rush. New episodes dropping every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And if you guys start downloading the shows, I forever will love you. So the Combine's going to kick off, Trav.
That makes me want to download. I'm going to be honest with
Bro,
you.
come on. Come on. The fact you think you need a download for me to love you.
But how can I pass it up?
My guy, quick, as Trav always puts it, peek behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Get in this morning. I had a morning, nothing major.
You did.
I had a morning.
You did.
Got in, put my headphones. I said, I'm going to go for a little meditation walk.
I knew the look in you.
Trav's getting out of his car. He goes,
Yeah.
what's up? You're on the phone. I go, nah, meditation walk.
Yeah.
And you just start walking with me.
I knew the look.
And that's a homie right there.
No doubt. I've had that look before, and you've done the same thing. So that's we brothers, man. It is what it is.
That's the boy. So hey, you'll be position coach. I'll be scout, which fits for this one.
It does.
Let's go through the linebackers.
Okay.
Because linebackers and defensive linemen are working out at the Combine day one.
Man.
Kickers too. We'll focus on linemen and defensive linemen. So linebackers, here's the first guy I'm going to give you on my list, T.
Okay.
Jahad Campbell of Alabama. Now, here's the thing. This is a guy that I really could see the Eagles end up picking. You let Zach Bond walk. You pick a Jahad Campbell because he is an off-ball linebacker, was an edge rusher. That's why he's 6'3", 244.
Okay.
Moves well laterally, can line him up all over, super smart. 117 tackles, 5 sacks his last season with Bama. Mm-hmm. Great first step. And again, semifinals for the Bednarik Award, which is Best Defensive Player. Semifinals for the Butkus Award, Best Linebacker. Mm-hmm. IQ off the charts. Mm-hmm. Starter at Bama. Hello. Coaches raved about him. All-American as well. Okay. Guy I love.
All right. Well, George, I like this Roll Tide kid. But I got to tell you, man, you're the expert here. I just coach him up. But I'd like to stay in the SEC personally. I'm going to get you a dog. I mean, you're giving me Roll Tide. I want to stay in Georgia. Let me get a dog. Can I leave?
I see the vision.
Jalen Walker.
Yep.
Listen, he is, I'll admit this, because this is sort of the knock on him, a little bit undersized. But
6'2", 245.
But
really flexible.
Flexible and just all around.
Yeah.
He's stout against the run, even though he's undersized.
Yeah.
Pass rush, we know what it is. Georgia, we know what it is. This guy has shown leadership.
Yep.
I mean, I hear you. Roll Tide all day, but I like this dog out of Georgia. You couldn't go wrong either way, though, George, to be fair. And again, it goes back to the Terrell Williams and Mike Vrabel and whoever you sort of take here.
Yeah.
And if I'm role-playing a position coach, whoever you bring to me here, we're going to develop.
Yeah.
So you really can't go but so wrong here.
Jalen Walker.
Man.
If I'm going to talk about Jahad Campbell being versatile, like Jalen Walker is that.
Yes.
Because that's a guy that will be the off-ball linebacker at the inside or line up as edge rusher or wide 9. The difference between a Jalen Walker and Jahad Campbell, Jalen being a top 10 prospect and Jahad Campbell being a first rounder,
of course,
is sheer ability and production. He had 34 pressures, Jalen Walker, in 16 games last season. And yes, he's playing on that Georgia defense. But he's kind of the straw that stirs the drink. Mm-hmm. Really good bend, really good flexibility to get around offensive tackles. Yeah. He's still growing as an off-ball linebacker, but hey, look, if you're Terrell Williams and you go 6'2", 245, can get to the QB and is a disruptor, let me go with that. Or this is the guy that, let's say, Trav, Josh Sweat in free agency ends up with the Patriots.
Ooh.
Josh Sweat, Keon White, and Christian Barmore, 3 of your 4 down linemen. Maybe Jalen Walker's the other guy, or he becomes the off-ball linebacker, and then you go with a value trade and sign like a Bryce Huff on the other side.
Oh my God,
that's a dream of a 5 guys in the box up front.
That's a bunch of wild dogs hunting there.
Now, if you want to talk Jalen Walker, let me bring you Michael Williams then. 6'5", 265, but he profiles more like a Nolan Smith, where he comes ready as a run defender and has room to grow as an edge rusher. Nolan Smith out of Georgia was an immediate starter for the Eagles, was super good in college, but then didn't come around as being a guy that translates to pressures and sacks until actually like the end of this season and into the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
What Michael Williams does really good, he can line up in the B gap, over the tackle, or outside in a wide 9. He's a polished run defender, needs more as an edge, too reliant on bull rushes and power moves. That's where it comes. You know what this guy fits more of? I could see him in like a Steelers defense.
Oh.
Where you have him as a hand in the dirt guy in a 3-4, and then an Alex Highsmith or a Nick Herbig playing off of them, they clean everything up. That's where I can see him going. But this is going to be a top 15 pick. One more, and I got to throw it for the people that maybe missed our prior video when we were talking about guys we love. It's again Kyle Kennard.
Yeah.
6'5", 255. This could be a 3rd or 4th round pick. And this is Zadarius Smith, who Terrell Williams coached in Detroit and made him productive.
It's a comp.
Bronco Nagurski Award winner, best defensive lineman in NCAA, long arms, and let's see how he uses them. Because Mike Vrabel said too, I don't care how long your arms are if you can't use them.
That's right.
How good are you? How do you put it all together? But length is his strength, good punching hands. He's a 4-year starter, super explosive, disrupts the pocket. This is, as the scout coming to you, man, you're the defensive line coach.
Sure.
And you got to go to Terrell Williams and go, here, guys I love, bring this guy to Terrell. He's going to go, let's get him.
Hey, I'll give you one more as we get out of here. Honorable mention for our guy, Donovan Ezaraku, Boston College. We tell you every episode this kid's a stud. Mentally, he's where you need to be. Leadership-wise, he's where you need to be. Size-wise, he can bulk up. If he bulks up, he'll be more stout against the run, which if you're picking nits, maybe that's where he needs to improve. But pass rush, forget about it. I mean, he owned the Senior Bowl. And now you get this kid, if he has a good combine, George, watch out. Donovan Ezaraku, he may not leave the area. Knock on wood, he'll be a Patriot.
Also, our guy, Ethan, our producer, he threw Ashton Gelati around me. 6'3", 275. He could line up B-gap over the tackle outside as well. This is what he loved about him. Competing in weightlifting at the state championship level, ranked in the Southeast region's top 25 for CrossFit.
He's
275?
Our producer's a meathead.
CrossFit?
That's
like
what
me.
he loves.
I love it.
Just the both of you.
Yeah. You should have heard the convo earlier. I'm like, dude, I'm going heavy on pasta with ground chicken. Next week, I'm going back to ground turkey. Don't you worry. He's Travis Thomas. I'm George Balekji. Appreciate you guys watching Foxborough Rush or listening. We got new episodes dropping every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Make sure to stay locked in all week long on Nesson.com as we got full combine coverage coming your way as well. Go to Nesson's YouTube page, subscribe, thumbs up, and like it as well. Appreciate you guys. Have a great rest of your day.